Okay, so we have now created our aperture. We're now going to work on the back metal kind of grid, which you can't really see here, but inside or the back of the aperture, before we put the central cylinder which is attached to the fan itself, blades of the fan, there is a kind of a grill, let's say, at the back, um, which dispenses the air going from the air conditioning outwards. And I want to put that detail in anyway, just because I think once it's viewed at different angles, it's still going to look great. So, quite simple this one. This tutorial shouldn't take too long. We're going to create a box. So let's go to our front view. I'm going to create a box. Now, because they're going to be running from the top all the way down the back of this hole we've created for the blades, we need it to fit the width. So rather than me drawing one at the top here, when we duplicate it eventually, it's going to be short. So I'm going to just gauge it by the longest. So it doesn't have to be thick. Something like this will do. And don't forget, you'll need to do a second click, because obviously that will be the depth of it. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at this closer. Let's move it around so we can see it. Okay, so we need, that's when it goes behind it. So we need it to be, so I'm happy with the height of it. And the width is obviously fine from before. Okay. We can then push it back afterwards. So it's just going to sit in there, and then these are going to be duplicated all the way down. You'll see what I mean. So great, we're happy with that. So let's move that to where we're going to start the duplication. As I said, they're going to run all the way down here. So that forms part of the back grill before we start the holding unit here and the blades. Right, okay. So back to my perspective view. And what we're going to do now, we're going to isolate this. So obviously this is selected. So as you remember the isolation button here, we can click on that. So we're working on this now, so it helps us see what we're actually working on. So once you're happy with the width, height, and the length, we can then convert this to a editable poly. Faces, so I'm going to go to click onto my polygon faces. I'm going to click on the top one, control click to select that, and then control click to select that. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go control I, which will invert the selection, and then we're going to delete, because we don't want to see this geometry. We don't need it. Okay. All right. So obviously, the less geometry you have, the less time it will take to calculate. When it comes to writing back in on material, and also when it's in your games engine as well. So what we're going to do here, we want this corner here to be rounded. Okay. Now, if I add, let me just show you. If I put in a turbo smooth modifier here, you can see it kind of it smooths the whole face, and obviously you can put in interpolations here, and you can see it's like an aeroplane blade, and we don't want that. We want the top to be flat. We only want the corner to be rounded, and obviously this is far too much geometry, so we're going to just do something different. And we're just going to focus on adding some swift loops in, like we did with the main unit, just around this area. So it's just the corner piece that's going to kind of bend around and look smooth and curved rather than everything else. Okay, so let's take away Just delete that. So as I said, let's go to a, let's see if we can add, come on. Okay, a Swift loop. So let's put in some Swift loops here. So I'm going to put one here. I'm going to put one in the middle there. And then I'm going to put one like that. And don't forget right click once you're happy. Okay, so now we've got some added geometry here. Now hopefully when I add a turbo smooth to this, it will keep this flat, I'm hoping, and it will just focus on the detail we've got here. Because there's no geometry here, so hopefully it won't affect it. So let's try this, he says. There we go. Okay, so you can see what's happened now. It's kept this flat because there's no geometry added to it. And it's only focusing on this area here, which is what I wanted. You can add interpolations to it if you wanted to, but as again, it won't affect it, it won't bend the top or the bottom. So that's what I did before with the turbo smooth, because there wasn't, if you remember, there wasn't any added. There we go, that's what it was like before. And there it's turbo smooth, just the area one. I hope that's you can understand that. Just by focusing on some geometry in one area, the turbo smooth then affects only that area. Okay, so now we're happy with that, we can convert to editable poly. Great. And what I want to do now is I want to angle these down. Now, at the moment, if you can see where the axis is here. And and obviously if you want to rotate or anything, it will always go from where this is. So if I rotate this now, okay, I kind of want it to be rotated from the back. So I'm going to move this. So how we move this is if I go to this one here, so you can see it. If we go to the hierarchy tab, and I say affect pivot only, because I only want to affect the pivot and move it backwards. I don't want to move the whole object. So at the moment, if I just move that, the pivot there, moves everything together. All I want to do is adjust the pivot on its own. So affect pivot only. I'm going to move that to the back. Okay, and then deselect it. And now, yes, it will move the object, but we've moved the pivot on its own. Okay. So let's go back to the perspective view. And let's de-isolate this. And let's move this. So let's just have a look at it. So let's just go rotate now. So let's rotate. Make sure you rotate on the right axis. Something like that'll do. Just a nice little bend, which will form when obviously the air comes out of the back of the air conditioner. It will obviously project it downwards at a nicer angle. It's a bit more detailed as well. So your models look really authentic, which is great. Okay, let's deselect that, and we'll go to our front view. I've just gone back to move now, so I've right clicked from rotate to move. Okay, so what we'll do now is we're going to click on the shift button, and we're going to drag this down to about here. Now you'll get an options pop up, and they can then determine the amount of copies you want. Now I want to create an instance of this because they're all the same. Now, if you remember from previous tutorials, if you do this and you duplicate an item, clone an item, you've got the option to, if you hold down the shift key, to determine the number of copies you want. But if you choose copy, it will calculate every polygon or every piece of geometry from the original mesh, which is the top blade there, and it will just duplicate it 10, 15 times, however many times you do that. Now you can see that's going to create a lot of calculational problems with the overall polygon count. If you choose instance, it will only retain the top original geometry polycount. Okay, it won't add anything to it. It'll just be kind of like an invisible, even though it won't be invisible. It's just kind of it'll just duplicate it based on the amount of polys in the first one and won't add anything extra to it. Now you only do that if everything's going to be the same. Okay, don't provide an instance or create instance of something if you need to change it afterwards, because if you do, then everything will change. All of the copies you create will change. So if it's going to stay the same instance, if you're going to change an individual item, then a copy. So let's try 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh, it's going to be about, I'll try 15. Okay, see if that works. Okay, look at that. Perfect. Okay, now you can see you've got some nice bladed. That's pretty cool now. So let's render that, and you're starting to get your blades in there. Not your blades, sorry, your grill, but it looks nice. So if you wanted to, you could select all of these. So you can do that, and obviously with your Alt key, you can deselect what you don't need. So it just retains the grill. And if you wanted to, you could, if you want to move them back, you don't want them to be, and again, we just want them to be just tucking in, because we need a bit of space for the center section where the blades will attach to, and then we'll do the main front grill afterwards. Okay, all right, so that's that one. Okay. So the next tutorial will work on the blades. Okay.